Your cybersecurity solution is here. Introducing Pentester's Advanced Cybersecurity Suite. Ready for peace of mind? Try it for free. No credit card required. Pentester.com.
Because if it wasn't for informants, Joey, you wouldn't have a podcast. Because we started it. We started it, Joey. This genre, whatever you want to call it, was started by informants. It was started by Michael Francis, my cousin Gene, and Johnny A. Light. They were the pioneers to these podcasts about the mob. His crew, him, Lance, Stevie, Georgie Borghese, and on and on and on, they took over a city. They took over the city of Philadelphia. I give them props. When I was in the street and I met with them, I loved them. They were my heroes. Here's a group of young Italian guys that took over a city. They didn't take over the city because they were good. They took over the city because they were dangerous. And everybody paid them because they knew if they didn't pay them, they would get a bullet in the head. I'm Anthony Ruggiano Jr. I want to welcome everybody to Reform Gangsters. And if you like our content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. And please don't forget about my Patreon. So, I like to talk about my own life and my own experiences and my own relationships, but I look at other people's content, and most of it I like, some of it I don't, most of it I like. And I don't really like to talk about one specific person. I really don't like to talk bad about anybody, but this Joey Merlino is just, he just gets under my skin. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, I can't say it any other way. The guy and it's because I know him and I know about him and I know who he is and what he is and where he came from. That's why he gets under my skin. Because unlike other people that are on these YouTube channels and other people that have podcasts, I know the guy. You know what I mean? I know the guy. I hung out with the guy. I spoke to the guy. He used to call my house. And I am in the process of getting those tapes. The man used to call my house and ask me to make appointments for him to meet Gambino family captains. But the reason why I'm talking about him today is because he's got this new thing now with this guy, Little Snuff. And they're talking about informants being enacted like pedophiles, that informants should register where they live like a pedophile. And that's disgusting. That's disgusting. It disgusts me. He disgusts me now. At one time, him and his crew were not my idols, but they were like my heroes. I mean, he wants us to be registered because we're murdering drug dealers. And he's a murdering drug dealer. I mean, come on. He is a murdering drug dealer that's unconfessed, unconvicted. Yeah, do informants lie on the stand? Yeah, sure, some of them do. Some of them do. I'm sure some of them do. He beat a lot of murder raps that he was guilty of. You know what I mean? Just because he beat the case doesn't mean he didn't commit the crime. Let's be real. His crew, and I'm going to say this again, his crew, him, Lance, Stevie, Georgie Borghese, and on and on and on, they took over a city. They took over the city of Philadelphia. I give them props. When I was in the street and I met with them, I loved them. They were my heroes. Here's a group of young Italian guys that took over a city. They didn't take over the city because they were good. They took over the city because they were dangerous, and everybody paid them because they knew if they didn't pay them, they would get a bullet. That's why they paid them, not because they were good guys or they were giving out bicycles at Christmas time or turkeys at Thanksgiving. They paid them because they knew the penalty was death. That's why they paid them. So they took over the city. Now he's got a podcast, and now it's rat. Every word out of his mouth is rat, mother effer, chain smoking cigarettes, drinking whiskey, gambling, degenerate gambler. He's someone that everybody should want their sons to take after because he's such a wonderful person. Because he gives out bicycles at Christmas time, so that he's wonderful, and he gives out turkeys at Thanksgiving. But the bottom line is, he's a criminal. He was a criminal. My opinion, and this is my opinion, is why he has a podcast now is because the government was torturing him. They really were. I mean, let's be real. They were never going to let him alone. It was just going to be one case. If he stood in the street and he stood active as the boss that he was the official boss of the Philadelphia crime family. When I met him in person, he was the official underboss. He wasn't the boss yet. He was the underboss. And I met him, and I brought a message to him from the Gambino family, from Nicky Carrazza, who was on the ruling panel of the Gambino family. The message I brought to him was they were making guys that lived in South Jersey, and the commission and the 5 families in New York didn't want them to make anybody from Jersey. The message I brought him was that they had to stop making guys from South Jersey, and they could only make guys that came from Philadelphia. That was the message that I brought him, and that he was recognized as the underboss, not the boss. And that's the message I brought him. He could deny, he could say I'm full of shit, but I'm not. That's the message I brought him, and he knows the truth. So now the government's torturing him, and the government's torturing him because he committed act of violence. That's why the government tortured me, and I was nobody compared to him. He was a boss. He was at the pinnacle of the mob life. You couldn't get no higher than boss. So once the government knows you committed an act of violence or you were capable of committing an act of violence, especially a murder, they're going to torture you. You're going to go to jail for everything. But they're going to put you in jail for whatever they can. They did it to me, and they did it to him. He was born into the mob, and I was born into the mob. We both come from the same place. That's why I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this guy. Now he wants to tell me that I should be under the Megan law. Me, I went to school. I became a counselor. I help people every day. I don't smoke cigarettes. Every word out of my mouth ain't mother effer. I'm not a degenerate gambler. I mean, but I have to be registered because why? I was a murdering drug dealer like him. So now he doesn't want to stay, which is a smart thing to do, him getting out of the street and him stopping, because he was going to go to jail in and out his whole life. I mean, they were never going to leave him alone. So now there's podcasts. Now, the only thing he doesn't realize is he should thank informants. And I'm going to tell you why he should thank informants. This genre, whatever you want to call it, was started by informants. It was started by Michael Francis, by Cousin Gene, and Johnny A. Light. They were the pioneers to these podcasts about the mob. They started this. They started me in this. They started me. I have to give props to who I have to give props to. I knew nothing about this. I got a call one day from Johnny A. Light and my cousin Gene. They wanted to put me on a show. I went on the show, and here I am all these years later. They started this genre. So now, the genre started by people that cooperated with the government. He needs to make money because he's a degenerate. He's a degenerate gambler. Can't make no money in any other way. So now what does he do? He starts a podcast. Now he's making money. He's making money. But if it wasn't for informants that opened up this road, this avenue, he wouldn't have a podcast. And I wouldn't have a podcast. So he should thank informants, not bash informants, but say that we're like pedophiles. It should be under the Megan Act or the Megan law, because if it wasn't for informants, Joey, you wouldn't have a podcast because we started it. We started it, Joe. We started the podcast. So you can make money. You should thank us instead of calling us names and this and that. You're not in the street no more. You're not in the street no more. And another thing, before I stop, another thing is that I know real mob guys, real Costa Nostra guys that are still in the street. I don't talk to them, of course. I haven't spoke, but I know them. I grew up with them. I know them. Nicky, Lenny in the Gambino family, Jeannie in the Gambino family, Frankie Bones in the Lucchese family, and I could go on and on and on and on. They're laughing at you, Joey. You're a laughing stock to them. You are a laughing stock to them. And I feel sorry for the Philly guys that are in federal prisons because they must be mortified by what you're doing because you are making a joke of the mob. We cooperated. We're out of it. We could say whatever we want about it, but you want to still preach and talk like you're still allowed, you're still around. You ain't around no more, and, it's not that I dislike him or, it's just that he just annoyed me with that comment. He annoyed me with that comment about that we should have to, register because we're murderers. He's a murderer, so I'm not going to speak about him anymore. That's my rant. That's my thing. I'm trying to get my hands on these tapes. And then I'll play them for the public, and then we'll have to see what he has to say about that. And I know a lot of his fans are going to bash me. He's a stand-up guy, and I'm not, and blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. They don't really know him. And this kid, Little Snuff, he doesn't really know him. This little kid Snuff is he's just, he's a fanboy.